right, everyone. Welcome to the June Marstudio Town Hall webinar. I'm very excited to get this up and running and started. This is a monthly question and answer style webinar we do for business owners, people in marketing, people in sales, those interested in customer engagement and getting better at putting themselves out there, whether it's digitally or offline. I'm your host, Jeremy Diouf. I'm the CEO of Synergy Reach, which is a lead generation company. I'm excited to host this one and all the other webinars alongside Chevy, who we will introduce shortly. Firstly, though, I would like to go over the webinar rules and just how we run things, especially if you're new here. Should take a couple seconds just so we're all on the same page about how this webinar typically goes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see. All right, so webinar rules. Firstly, there's two ways to ask questions. One, you can type your question on the Q&A chat and we'll be able to see it and we'll go ahead and answer your question chronologically. Secondly, you can raise your hand and we'll be able to see that and we can bring you on as a panelist. If you're a panelist, you'll be on video and we'll be able to interact with you live. So those are two ways you can ask questions. When you ask your question, go ahead and state your name, your position, company name, and industry. This just helps with context around your question. How Chevy may answer a question, someone's question about manufacturing marketing may be different from someone asking a consultant asking a marketing question. So that's a format for introducing yourself ideally. Question format, please limit it to about 30 seconds or less, just so it allows us to get to as many questions as possible. Feel free to ask follow-up questions for clarification. Just again, make sure to keep it around under 30 seconds. Webinar decorum, please refrain from interrupting or adding your own comments. When questions are asked, our panelists will provide the answers. So Chevy will go ahead and provide those given answers. If you have any issues with this, again, we can help you out. Distractions. To maintain a distraction-free webinar, please remain muted if you are not engaged in conversation. If you have issues muting yourself, I can go ahead and do it for you, or my co-host, Kevin, can do it. And self-promotion. Please refrain from self-promotion. We may remove an attendee from the webinar if they engage in promoting themselves or their company and do not follow the rules. So that just allows us to have a very valuable webinar for everyone to get to all the questions and such. All right. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Chevy to the webinar. Chevy, welcome to the June webinar.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? You know what? I'm in the office, but let me go ahead and change my background to the appropriate webinar background. You know, can't be in the wrong space for the right meeting, right? That's what's cool about the 21st century. You can literally teleport yourself to a whole new location. Yeah, the last background that I had was my office, and this is my webinar background. As you can see, Jeremy's matching me with his earthly background that he's got going on himself. Well, anyways, thanks everyone for joining. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. Yeah, Jeremy, what do you want to start with?
Yeah, we just like to know a little bit about you, some background about yourself, also some background about Marstudio.
Sounds good. Let me start with some background about the company first. So Marstudio was originally founded by two amazing guys, Adam Enrique and Sam Rontan, who were found in the name of the company, Mars, but it also stands for Marketing Studio. So there's a lot of play in there. It was originally founded in 1999 at New Jersey Institute of Technology. We are actually celebrating our 25th year anniversary. That's actually pretty cool because we're running some kind of unique promos and stuff that we've never done before. So that's a conversation for another day. But anyways, Yeah, so we were originally really focused on brand inception and graphic design concepts because of just Sam's strength, one of the original founders in the company. And eventually we evolved to doing all sorts of different mediums for business visualization, from corporate identity to sales collateral. Eventually, we started getting into responding to RFPs with proposals for line item deliveries, ranging in all gamuts of work from traditional to digital. And we've really kind of the last 5 years changed our approach rather than focusing on the solution, which is the end deliverable, the website, or the direct mail piece. We're focusing on really identifying or helping our clients identify the problem or the needs, and then by identifying the needs and really figuring out what their goals are, who their target market is, we can then figure out what the appropriate medium and channel would be to reach that particular audience. And then therefore comes the solution, and making sure the solution is timely, on budget, has the appropriate resources, considerations, and so forth and so on. So I really enjoy this new model because it allows our decades and of experience to really come out, and ultimately benefits the client, which ultimately benefits their client. And that's really who the end goal is. Marketing in its purest form is just communication. So let me just move on to sharing a little bit about myself. And guys, I just want everyone to know that's on this call early, that we came up with this video concept. Before I share more with you, let me share a little bit with you about my concept of these webinars. Um, I've been to so many different sales and marketing webinars, and I've been in so many ecosystems, CEO roundtables, and so forth and so on. And you join these events and you get a wealth of information, and they throw it at you, they shower you, and almost like a fire hose with this information. And it's a 60-minute on stage engagement, not really an engagement because they're just giving you the information. Um and then there's maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most tops, to do a Q&A where people get to engage. I really loved it, but I was always hungry and I was really craving asking questions. Hearing other people's questions actually stirred more questions in my mind sometimes, and I wanted to follow up, and I never got those chances. So I came up with this, we came up, I shouldn't say me and my team, and even Jeremy was involved in coming up with this marketing town hall, ecosystem, Q&A ecosystem, where we flip the script. So this is pretty much the most you're going to hear me talk about myself or the company, as soon as I finish up sharing a little bit with you about myself. But what we're doing is we're going to spend 5 minutes talking about us, and then we're going to spend the next 90 minutes, or we won't get that much. The whole thing is 90 minutes, but we're going to spend at least the next 60 minutes, 70 minutes, jumping right into answering your question. So as I'm talking, if you guys don't already have questions in mind, and I'm probably again stealing Jeremy's thunder here. But if you don't have questions in mind, start thinking about those marketing questions, whether it's branding or web or digital or deliverables or whatever area or ecosystem, content management systems, AI. But anyways, project management versus design versus video. Just if you have them, you just start thinking about them, and we're gonna get to them today. Hopefully, I'm gonna do my best with the whole team here to get around to everyone. And if we don't get around to everyone, we're gonna figure out a way to get you those answers. Anyways. A little bit about me. I think I can break myself down really fast without wasting everyone's time. Is by sharing three little quick data pieces for you. My father was a businessman and he was a liquidator. I believe the concept of business at a young age, errantly, was just destroy everything, right, and make money. So liquidate and make money off the liquidation, right? I got to see the holistic side of my dad much later. I saw, a widow, thank him for his services. And it was actually a very wonderful night and evening and story, but I'll spare you guys the details. But so I got to see the good that my dad did with his business. But ultimately, I thought business was tearing things down. So that's the first part of the story. And the most important takeaway from that is learning why most businesses fail. Oftentimes, it comes down to marketing, sales, funnels, channels, communication, understanding demographic, income, think target marketing and things like that. So usually it's surrounded marketing and communication. And we would go in there and do that well and be able to liquidate the assets or, churn the inventory. Anyways, the second thing is a big part of my background. For 15 years, I was in public service. So I really enjoy helping people. I've been a firefighter, an EMT, a police officer. I got bored easily. I went to law school, became a public defender. Again, um, and part of that experience, my last day job, I was the CEO of a multi-specialty medical practice. Just to give you a little bit of my background. I met my best friend and business partner in Sam. I was able to, connect with them, become a partner at Marstudio. I'm the senior chief marketing officer. And really, my job is to help our clients strategize and understand where their potential gaps are in their overarching marketing and sales ecosystem. We have identified 9 different priorities in terms of things you need to address. At the very core of that, not included in the 9 priorities, but obviously at the core nucleus is your brand message, your voice, your avatar, your clients, your personas. But anyways, and helping them identify where these gaps are, and then filling those gaps with our execution team, and basically writing the script for the specific problems that they're having. So that's I think more than enough, Jeremy, about me and the company. If anybody wants to know more specifically as we're moving forward, if they have questions that relate to their business, or they want additional insight about myself or the company, I'm happy to share that. But I'd really love to jump into the questions and hear what people are maybe struggling with, or what questions they have. And please don't be bashful. You can put your questions in anonymously. You can write your name and your background, or you can even raise your hand and jump on as a panelist with us and have a conversation directly with us, and that way we can have a back and forth. But it's totally up to you, and I welcome follow-up questions too.
Perfect. Sounds good. So we'll go ahead and get into the questions. If you have a question, like Chevy mentioned, you can type it in the Q&A chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll bring you on as a panelist to be on video.
Jeremy, you have something on top of your mind as a softball you can throw at me to get everybody else's palate going?
Yeah, I
What's been
actually
on top of your mind recently?
yeah, I actually do. One thing that's been on top of my mind is ad spend. I think this is a topic we've talked about before. Um, Recently, we actually had a client that's looking to sell a book in the aviation planning. He's actually my cousin, and he's more so he's wondering, is it better to leverage a platform like Amazon to sell that given book, or is it better to do it more natively on a landing page on a website where he can have more control over the direction the traffic goes and what they do? So, to sum up the question, should he just keep it simple, use Amazon for selling his book, or drive traffic to a landing page that we create to convert that given traffic?
What an awesome question to start with, because I can come at this from a couple of different ways. First and foremost, I want to share with you that we work with mom and pops and Fortune 100 companies, and that's a real strength of Mars Studios, because we can steal one Fortune 100 ideas for our mom and pop businesses, and also take mom and pop business concepts to our Fortune 100 companies, which can be kind of unique sometimes too. So the answer to that question that you asked me, my initial intuition is, why not do both? Because what I like in doing both is it creates an A/B, right? And as you're evaluating both of those options, why don't you look at the pros and cons of doing both and see if there's one, not for the purposes of eliminating one, but for the purposes of prioritizing one over the other. And say, okay, I'm going to start with this one because this one looks more promising. You come up, remember in elementary school, high school, lab science, we came up with a hypothesis and then we did it. This is just lab work. Like in your cousin's case, I would assume this is his ambition, his goal, this is his dream, this is what he wants to do. If it is, then these are things that he could potentially undertake and doing on his own. And if he has some seed capital to invest, there are companies that specifically consult in, doing Amazon, shopping carts, specifically even for authors. You could get that niche with it. But ultimately, I would look at, making those. So the narrative, I think, is important either way. And you try to leverage Amazon's, container template to fit that narrative into it. because that's the overarching thing is the narrative and the story, and then fitting that into Amazon's template. And then when it comes to his own brand creation, user engagement, web e-commerce solution that people are going to journey through, then he can actually make that journey or story as expansive as he wants. Not only through the homepage and landing pages, but through sales funnels, sales landing pages, and so forth and so on, through imagery, videography, videos, anything that you can think of. And then I would start capturing, I would capture the data between the two to see which one's more viable. But those would be two really good outlets to start with. Why not? Why invest all of your time and energy in just one of those? I think there's enough bandwidth to do both of those potentially if you're
That's
serious about it.
both approaches. Okay, sounds good. And it looks like we have actually have a follow-up question on that, but I'll get to these questions first.
That's
So,
cool.
um, Anonymous asks, given the rising cost of advertising on platforms such as Facebook and LinkedIn, how do you address these challenges to ensure optimal ROI? What strategies would you suggest to improve ad performance, or would you suggest moving to an ad platform like Google Ads? So he's asking about rising ad costs with Facebook and LinkedIn and how to address those and
Yeah.
improve the performance, or would
Yeah,
it
I
be
was
better?
writing that down. Ultimately, it's interesting how this maybe the what we were discussing stirred the question. Maybe it didn't, but I think there's a parallel here, and the parallel is AB. So let's say you've identified your avatar, your audience as living or residing on, LinkedIn Boulevard and Facebook Avenue, and you decided to market on there or set up shop on there and advertise to them. Um, you want to capture the metrics of the conversions, impressions, and at the end of the day there's so many different numbers out there. The only one you really need to focus on is the one that relates to sales, and the number that creates the dollar sign, which is the conversion, which is the actual client. Because they talk about impressions, and they talk about click-through rates, and they talk about conversions, and conversions in Google or social media can mean basically someone clicked the number to call you or filled out the form, but it doesn't necessarily mean there was an engagement. So how do you tie your POS system or your CRM to your content management system, to your website, to make sure you track that end result? Because that's the only thing that ultimately in my mind matters. Which one is leading to conversion? And then what did that client acquisition cost? What did that conversion cost you? That way you can, basically target for that. But yeah, rising costs, do your due diligence. So we have four priorities. For example, the first four priorities are, we can come back to these if we need to, but it's business visualization, visualizing your business, having a credible business identity, sales collaterals and funnels, having good, clear sales funnels that can help convert that client once they find you credible. And then lead gen is priority number three, which is advertising, creating leads, creating the opportunities. That's number three. And then number four, priority number four is data analytics reporting. Number four is so important in this loop, because priority number four in data and analytics is what allows us to measure the Google ads and the Facebook ads, and we can you don't want to turn on and turn off too quickly. So if you only have one budget and you got to reprioritize that budget, then you have to be disciplined. Again, do your due diligence. Run, let's say, hey, well, we only have the budget to run one of these three campaigns, or we can only do Facebook or Google ads. Well, okay, do at the absolute bare minimum 3 months. I mean, 3 months is going to be their setup period just to get the algorithms hot, and then setting up the ad another 3 months or running a pay-per-click campaign. So you got to commit to staying on, let's say, social media for 6 months, and then getting that data, and then repositioning the bandwidth or the budget to Google. In an optimal situation, you would run those parallel to each other, and then you would look at the data and the metrics in side by side. And there's so many other considerations. Maybe it's not a lead issue. Maybe it's a conversion issue. Maybe it's where the leads are going. Maybe it's the text copy or the ad copy in the pay-per-click ad, not necessarily the budget or the keyword. So there's a lot of different considerations there that should be evaluated, and measured. So if you haven't audited your advertising ecosystem, start with that. If you've audited it and it's healthy, then you got to start looking at the data and being able to do A/Bs.
Perfect. And we have another question. Hi, Chevy. This is David. Our company is in commercial real estate sector. How important is a CRM in marketing? Any recommendations?
Was that real estate sector?
Yeah, the real estate sector,
Commercial or residential?
commercial.
The CRM in and of itself is one of our priorities. I think it's like number six, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. Um, but anyways, I think it's really important because at the end of the day, I think you not just you have to retouch potential leads 8 to 12 times in order to have a 50% conversion opportunity. So if you're not getting the touches, you're not going to get the conversions. Um, so you need a tool that can help you stay on top of that. So I've heard the CRMs called client relationship management tools, client resource management tools. So however you want to look at it, the fact is that it is managing that opportunity with that client. And we're all human. And one of the best the best things about a CRM for those that might not be familiar with it is the fact that you can that's where you start really thinking about automation. So first is organization, I should say, the value of a CRM, organizing those contacts, knowing when they contacted you, knowing, and then tying the CRM to the CMS so you can see where those contacts even came from. But okay, great, I know where they came from, and I have them organized. What's the purpose of knowing where they came from? What's the purpose of having them organized? The purpose to communicate with them and communicating with them. The many CRM tools, not all, offer automation tools integration so that you can then set up certain communications to go out in order to have the touches that you need in order to get to that conversion. Which is ultimately what you're trying to do is get a client and again grow the business. So CRM, I think, is integral in that process, and especially in commercial real estate, those sales cycles could potentially be slow. And I think the relationships build over time. So I think you can also leverage it for brand awareness, not just lead nurturing and lead closure, but also for brand awareness purposes. Um, so
All right. And then the next question here. In an era where consumers value authenticity and transparency, how do you ensure that your brand's messaging remains genuine and resonates with their audience with your audience?
hmm. Yeah. Gosh, and maybe this is just the old man wisdom thing, but be honest with yourself, be true to yourself. Um, you know, um, Represent what it is that you want to do, as opposed to, putting on a dog and pony show. Because ultimately, what I think happens in business, whether it's marketing services that you're selling or whatever your product or other services that you're selling, if you're not genuine to who you are and who your product services and what the benefits and value propositions of your product or service are, then you're basically going to potentially mislead someone to believe your product is something other than what it is, and then they're going to purchase it and be unhappy with it. So if you represent your product or service with integrity, and what I mean by that is, don't try to be everything to everyone. In terms of your messaging, there's 7 billion people on the face of the planet. I guarantee you 3.5 billion of them don't agree with the other 3.5 billion. And unless it's water, we're probably not all going to agree. And even water that's packaged and sold, there's half the community will say you can't drink this one, and the other half will say you can't drink that one. So even that's controversial. So the point is, really think about who your audience is. Obviously you're in business and selling a product or service because you have some tie or connection or love or passion for it. So who is that community and what is it that they would see in terms of a value proposition? What problems does it solve? What entertainment value or joy does it bring to their lives, or simplicity does it create? And emphasize that and speak to that, and that hopefully that'll get you the results that you're looking for.
All right. I had a I had a follow-up question to my first question because you mentioned A/B testing both the Amazon, the listing on Amazon, and also on a landing page for my cousin's aviation book. What's the timeline of A/B testing, would you say? Like days, weeks? What's the timeline, especially for something like a book? What would that look like?
Well, it's not the product per se as it is the medium or channel that's being used to generate the lead. So the AB could be, and again, when we talk about ABs, AB can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different peoples, and I've mentioned that I think in a previous in a webinar. But let's just look at it from just a standard A/B. Like, let's say you're exploring two different things. Well, what are those two different campaigns? Is it an email? Well, the moment you deploy it, you could start looking at it. What was the open rate by the next day? What was the bounce rate using two different systems or two different email lists? Or, if you're looking at the quality of two different emails or two different systems, what was the receipt rate or delivery rate? And so the very next day, there's things you could evaluate. If you're doing a direct mail piece, well, it has to go to a post office, it has to reach people, people have to carry it in. So what's the life cycle, and then how are you going to measure it? So there's a lot of different things in that way. So yeah, and then AB, again, you can do pre-AB or post-AB. I like to think of pre-AB as like the market research stuff, where you might do focus groups, or you might show people brand concepts, or to show people package concepts, or options, so that they can give you insight on which direction to go. Or you have AB, which is post AB, where you're like, let's say lead gen AB, where you're measuring, marketing opportunities and sales opportunities. So there's a lot of different ways to, potentially look at that. You can do AB just even on a brand concept to see which brand resonates with maybe your target audience. Let's say you're targeting, moms, and you're between two different brands, and you want to make sure that that brand resonates with moms. So you would, hire or engage, or, just go out in the community and engage, moms, of a certain demographic, and say, hey, which one of these brands resonates with you more? And talk to 100 of them, 1,000 of them, whatever the case may be. There's digital ways to do that stuff as well. But, and the idea would be to, make sure that you're not going to put a brand out there that just resonates with you, or you feel you like, but ultimately reaches your target audience. And then what if there's a zip code, or there's a certain identity that happens to be with that mom? We can create that, persona. But again, ABs can be looked at and leveraged in a lot of different ways. And again, if you're running smoothly and there's no big gaps, that's really a great way to optimize, to look at different things, to evaluate and see what's working. And then you have to be able to have somebody that can look at that information for you, of course,
Perfect. Okay,
that understands how to interpret it.
that's good. I think this would be a good kind of gap to revisit some of the webinar rules. Um, well, let me go ahead and share my
Should
screen.
fly through that, Jeremy. Let's
Yeah.
get to the more questions. Anyways, no, go ahead. Just do your thing, man.
So for anybody recently joining, just going to go over some quick rules for the webinar. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you on as a panelist, or you can ask it in the Q&A chat. You can also ask it anonymously if you so choose. Go ahead and introduce yourself, right? Give us your name, position. Feel free to do that, industry and such. Oops. And then please keep your question format to about 30 seconds or less. And any follow-up questions, you can go ahead and ask those within 30 seconds about. Refrain from interrupting, of course. Also distractions, please remain muted. If you need help with that, we can help mute you. And then please refrain from self-promotion when it comes to this webinar. All right. Let's get back to the questions. If you have a question, you can go ahead and ask it. Okay. Hello, Chevy. This is great. What, in your experience, is the most important metric we should be focused on in our marketing? This is Jennifer, and we are a B2B business.
What's the most important metric we should be looking at in terms It's a good question. I'm not going to state the obvious, the company's revenue, right? Um, if I was going to be a little bit more sophisticated, because I mean, it's an honest answer though. Looking at the company's revenue, like looking at the most obvious thing, is the company becoming more profitable? Is it breaking even? Is it moving in the right direction? What are the goals of the company? Is the company's goal sustainability for the marketing department, or is the company's goal, growth year over year for the company? And at what pace? 10%, 25%, 50%? Um, but if I'm not looking at that, I think I'm looking at client acquisition cost. I think that's the most significant thing that I enjoy looking at. I think it's relevant. I think it makes a lot of sense. Why? Because what client acquisition cost essentially is what does it cost me to acquire a single client? And what how do I define a single client? How do I define a transaction? Is it an individual transaction? Are you selling, two car detached garages, and usually the one time you sell this product one time? Are you selling, automobiles where you have a reoccurring sale every 3 years potentially, or what or are you selling an ongoing service that has an annual value, a lifetime value? The client have a lifetime value to you, or is it a one-time value, or is it an annual value? But the reason why this is important is because what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out what should you be spending in order to acquire said client. So let's say, for example, you're selling a product, and that product is, uh, cost $10 to manufacture, and all said and done, you left with $5 in profit at the end of it, $4 in profit at the end of it. What do you do with the $4? Well, your client acquisition cost, if we were to use the law of averages across the board, maybe 25% of your profit, so basically $1 of the $4 should be leveraged or used to reinvest in getting another $20 client, right? And this is what keeps your growth. So if you were a farmer, you wouldn't harvest all your corn and sell all your corn. Then next season you wouldn't have any corn to plant into the ground. You keep some of the corn to reseed the ground and also to feed yourself, right? So so the idea here is figuring out your client acquisition costs. So like, let's say you provide a service and you have an annual value. So you normally, if you get a client, they'll stay with you on average a year. Let's say they make you $1,000 a month. Okay, again, $12,000 a year is the per client value per year. Again, taking that number and figuring out what the profit is, and then taking 25% of that. The client acquisition cost is this baseline number that a lot of different things revolve around in terms of the campaigns, ads, and activities that you're running in terms of evaluating whether it makes sense. So if you can even apply it to a salesperson. Salespeople are not going to like me for sharing this, but so let's say you have a salesperson that costs you $50,000 a year, and let's say they're selling a product that costs it has a high it's $1,000 client acquisition cost. It's an expensive product. It has a $4,000 profit, and it's $1,000 that of so in this salesperson only sells, let's say 25 of these a year. Well, you're double your client acquisition cost because the salesperson selling, 25 units, and his salary is $50,000. So he should be selling 50 of those in terms of client acquisition costs to justify his salary and his value. And if you're looking at him as a lead gen mechanism, so it's interesting how you can use that number, but you can also use it in your ABs when you're looking at, hey, I spent X dollars on Facebook. Okay, if I spent $20 on Facebook, how many clients did I get out of it? If my client acquisition cost was supposed to be $1, then I should have gotten 20 clients out of it. If I didn't, then maybe I need to look somewhere else. And then what you're trying to do is you're comparing Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and direct mail, and you're looking at the cost it took you to acquire that client, and you're trying to reduce that cost as much as you can so that it meets the requirements of your sustainable and ongoing business. So client acquisition costs. Sorry, that was a boring answer, but sometimes the answer you're looking for isn't sexy, but I think that's important. Um, yeah. And on the surface, if you're not that deep yet, what could you do? Audit. If you're not that deep, then maybe you just need a general house cleaning, you need a general consult, you need a general overview. Maybe the best thing that you could do is just audit. That means bring in a subject matter expert, a fractional CMO of some sort, like myself, that can look at the ecosystem and identify where the gaps potentially are. But otherwise, if you're looking at one thing, then it's client acquisition cost. All right, Jeremy, I can keep going on and on about that, so you got to get me off of my soapbox.
Yeah. Hopefully that answered your question well, Jennifer. And we have a question from James. Hi, Chevy. Question from James. What are your thoughts on using platforms like Upwork and Fiverr for marketing?
Um, Look, I think every solution has its place, right? I mentioned at the very onset of this call that I used to be an EMT, right? I've also been the CEO of a multi-specialty medical practice. Now, whether you look at me as an EMT or the CEO of a multi-specialty medical practice in a marketing role, neither one of those positions made me a trauma surgeon, right? So there's a time and place for those roles, whether sophisticated admin or, hey, I'm going to triage this, I'm going to put a band-aid on it. So I think beta concepts or initial concepts. So for example, at Marstudio, I get asked this question all the time. Um, Chevy, which industry or which niche client are you looking for? And I'm like, what I'm really looking for is a client that's in a certain lifespan or life expectancy in their business. And that is somebody who's been there, done that. They've done their experimentation. They've attempted to use tools like the ones that were just mentioned, um, like Fiverr, where they try to do use I think again these concepts they serve a grassroots purpose. If you're trying to get off the ground and you don't have the resources to spend. So I think they do serve a grassroots purpose. But I think then you have to do your due diligence. So I have a book here. It's not actually one of my top fives, but it is my business partner's top five. That's why I have it here. It might be actually be in his top three. It's called The Brand Story, a story brand, right? I think that's a building a story brand. But ultimately, there's a lot of nuances that go into, let's say, a corporate identity or brand iconography or brand message or brand colors or typefaces or taglines and composition and layout and making people uncomfortable versus comfortable and tension, and again having something resonate with a female or male demographic. So if you don't have someone to lead you, and I could actually share a really cool story, I won't get into it because it's going to take some time, but it was basically about a board of directors, a physician board of directors where half were women and half were male, and they were conflicted as to what brand identity to move forward with, until I got into the room, and then it became really clear to everyone. But ultimately, there's tension and there's a lot of different nuances that go into these solutions. So if you want that, then you're going to have to work with a subject matter expert. And that sometimes can be very costly and really tough to do. Where do I go to find this person? How do I get started? What's it going to cost me? I'm not Microsoft. And those are all legitimate concerns that you should have. So how can you make that happen? And there again, there are solutions for small businesses, mid-sized businesses, where you don't have to spend $2 million on a logo and still get a really good product.
Okay. Right. That answers
I think I
James.
scared everybody by saying you don't have to spend $2 million on a logo. Now they're thinking, damn, this guy charges like $100,000 for a logo. We really don't. The solution has to be the right for the client.
Yep. All right. Another question here. Hi, this is Noel. I have a branding question. How important is storytelling when it comes to standing out from competitors? I was curious if you had any recommendations for creating a good brand story.
God, this is the first time in the marketing town hall, I think in our audience, we have Sam, our chief creative officer. It's like the first time I've ever wanted to do a tag team and like tag him in and step off stage and let him come on here as a panelist to answer your question. And by the way, this is a great opportunity. I think I don't know. I hope we have the slide. We were supposed to put a slide together. Maybe we have it, maybe we don't. But I guess it just shows that we're human too. But we were supposed to have a slide to share with you guys about our upcoming shows. Sam is going to be doing an upcoming show in 3 months from now. So not the next two shows, but the third show from now. So July, August, September. I think September, Sam is doing a show. He's the chief creative officer, he's the chief brand officer. He's truly a brand genius when it comes to storytelling. And again, I never really understood what the heck that meant, especially early on as a more sales focused guy. But as I got more into branding and more into, audience and avatars and, personas, I then really understood what it meant to create a message that resonates with your target audience and really value that. And that's really what's important. So we have this like nine priorities. At the center of it is something we refer to as the Almighty Brand. It's actually Sam's concept, the Almighty Brand. And it's kind of like the idea is this planet, this ecosystem, this Almighty Brand that your target audience resides on, and everything is built and messaged to resonate with them, their needs, their goals, their wants, and so forth and so on. So that's kind of like I think the importance of it. So I would circle the date, find out when the Marstudio. I think it's gonna be in again, it's gonna be in September, probably mid Thursday, mid month on a Thursday at probably 10 a.m. Speaking of that, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw this other one in too, Jeremy, if you don't mind. Next month, this my webinar that's normally during business hours from 10 a.m. till 11:30. We go 90 minutes during business hours. We're actually gonna turn the table on its head. We're gonna do this event at 8 p.m. So that's gonna be a twist. We've been doing this event at this time for Jeremy. It's been half a year now. Crazy, right? We
Yeah.
started at the beginning of the year, right? Something like that, or December. I don't even know, man. Time flies. So next month's webinar Q&A, in case some folks have a hard time getting on these events, or you want to go home, get dinner, and you don't have a work day. If you guys want to come back, you're welcome to come back. If you have follow-up questions, want to add people, invite people, you're welcome to. But yeah, we're gonna try to reach an audience at 8 p.m. next month, and then definitely come back and talk to Sam. I don't know what he's focused on, but I'm sure he'll love talking to you about branding. Maybe if he's listening to us, he'll put a little comment in the chat and give you a little teaser about what's coming up. But anyway, sorry, gotta plug in the boss man, Jeremy, sometimes.
Okay. Sam's webinar, 3 months from now.
We're on pause. We're waiting on questions.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we're waiting on questions. Hey, don't be bashful if you're on here. And in case I'll talk a little bit about the range of things. Marketing and sales to me is everything from, your branding, your iconography, your URL, your tagline, your business name, corporate identity, business cards, letterheads, envelopes, right? Email signatures are definitely a big player in today's world. If you don't have a custom email signature if you don't have, a corporate URL behind your name and you're still using a Ymail or Gmail. You definitely want to update that. Hopefully, we have some business professionals on here that are way past that. That ultimately, that's what we're looking for. Um, Integrated marketing systems. When we talk about integration, that's another thing that people sometimes confuse, Jeremy. I look at it two different ways. I think of integration as like plugins, like technology integration, like your CMS integrated with your CRM. But
Me
I
too.
also think of integration as like um, integrated messaging. So they're like your brand story that we were talking about earlier. Like your brand voice, your brand message, your value proposition, your call to action. Whether you're using, regardless of the medium or channel that you're using, you're making sure that the brand voice and the brand, message is clear. And if you're using, call to actions, different types of call to actions with different type of, engagements using different mediums based on the type of people that they're going to reach, based on the research that we've done to reach those folks. So, yeah, there's so much to do. And then advertising, you have traditional advertising, billboard advertising, newspapers, magazines, TV, radio. And then you have, the new modern digital SEO, display, pay per click. Seen a ton in SEO these days. If you're not taking advantage of that as a corporate entity, that's a big miss. Even as a smaller entity, restaurant, food and beverage, products, you should be focusing on SEO. SEO is literally, making sure people can find your digital storefront, and that's another conversation we could have. Do we have a question? If not, I was going to ramble on about digital storefronts.
Yeah, I actually had a question on integration, but we do have another question here. Hello, Anonymous asks, hello, how important is it to have activity tracking on my website? Things like a Facebook pixel. Does it make advertising in the future more effective?
I hope I'm understanding this question correctly because I go back to that fourth priority that I was mentioning, which is data analytics reporting. I think it's absolutely important. I do have one visual that I could pull up if we wanted to.
Yeah.
You know what? This is an yeah. You know what? I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up because it's an old school. This visual dates back some time. We've been talking a lot. Let me share something here. Boom. All right. So this is when Marstudio signature process was only four priorities. Like I said, we have the almighty brand and now nine priorities, not four. But this is the primary four, and this is one way to look at the primary four. But so the first one is your business visualization. This is essentially what your business looks like, feels like to other people. So if your business is rusted, you have fountain of youth water coming out, nobody wants to drink from it. If you have a gold pipe, you got mud water coming out of it, people will think it's a mud mask. At the end of the day, it's perception sometimes. If you have poor messaging, you have gunk in your pipe, then your content and the clarity of what you're offering won't get through. If you have cracks in your pipe, error pages, broken links, poor address messaging, value proposition offer, those could miss the opportunity. So that's really just how credible your business looks. P2 is more like the sales funnels. How do I catch these leads, these when they want to engage me? How do I sell my product on a sales page or with a PowerPoint or with a brochure? All the ways that we capture and convert the client. And once we have priority number one and two set, then we focus on number three, which is increasing leads, generating the traffic. That's your advertising. That's your opportunities. So the question that sorry for the long analogy, but the question that we're talking about is, as we said, a pixel or an HTML code or UTM code or any type of mechanism to track or measure results I come back to P4, and if you notice, it looks like a little thermostat sticking into the pipe, which gives us our water pressure, our water temperature. This gives us our click-through rates, our impression rate. So it's one way to look at it, and one way to think about it. And you wouldn't turn the water on without knowing where it's going to go and having a vessel or an ecosystem to carry it, or having a vessel to catch that water or that opportunity. Otherwise, it's just wasted opportunity. And then again, measuring the flow. The waterman's got to get paid too. So, but hopefully that was a more interesting way of answering that question. But yeah, track, measure everything in every way possible. Because again, it comes back to that most important thing, client acquisition costs. How am I going to be able to determine that if I'm not tracking and measuring these results?
Mhm. I actually had a follow-up question on that. How would you say is the best way to approach changing your campaign around? There's I guess different schools of thought, like, hey, change everything that's not working or change one thing at a time. How do you approach switching things up when things aren't working?
Well, it depends what's changing. Are you changing your brand, or are you changing your Facebook advertising campaign that you got a $300 budget for? So, and then even the brand, how far are you along in your brand, and is it for a mom and pop, or is it for a Fortune, 500 company? All those things matter. But yeah, sometimes you're going to need to do a little bit more due diligence than other times. When the opportunity presents itself and if available, what we want to do is we always want to test a new concept, because if you're doing this right, you have concepts that work. You've already identified them, but you're not putting all your eggs in that one basket. You're gonna make most of your investment in that one basket, but you're gonna have alternative lead gen funnels. Why? Because what happens if that basket goes down? Whatever that basket may be. What I get all my business through direct mail. Well, what happens if the U.S. Post Office changes their policy tomorrow? What if Facebook shuts down your Facebook account tomorrow? What if your Google Ads campaign? Google's constantly changing their algorithm for pay per click or this or that. They just applied GA4, and that kind of like threw a wrench in all sorts of different things. But again, it really depends. But did that answer your question? Was that your question, Jeremy, or was that someone else's question?
That was my follow-up question.
Okay.
That does answer it. Like it depends on multiple factors. I found typically this is my approach. Like if one thing isn't work, I usually try to change one thing at a time. Like I look
Yeah.
at hey, the page gets a lot of visitors and not as much conversions. Okay, changing a copy in a certain or changing the offer, just one thing at a time. But I've had
Yeah.
definitely instances where it's multiple.
I love the fact that you mentioned one thing at a time. I think attribution is really important.
Mm.
So if we're looking at it from a grassroots standpoint, then yeah. One thing at a time. That way you can associate or disassociate and make sure the one thing is really one thing. Either you're adding one thing or you're taking one thing away. Don't add and take away, because you won't know if it's the addition or subtraction that did it. So yeah, from a grassroots perspective, and I think that's also really important. From a global perspective, if you're gonna have to decide how to do that or how to approach that, and I would say add on rather than taking away. But if you're limited in resources, then you evaluate what you have going, and you remove a particular campaign that's not working well in order to add another campaign. I mean, we just did this yesterday with a client, with a pay-per-click campaign. As a matter of fact, we identified certain they were going to increase their budget, but instead of just blanket increasing the budget across the 8 different campaigns that they had, we actually identified 2 campaigns that were really more product related campaigns that we felt clients wanted to go touch and feel and smell and taste. It's hardwood floors, but you get the idea. They wanted to touch and feel it, as opposed to the other services were the campaigns were service based, like refinishing or or let's say, for example, cleaning or things of that nature, where there was more urgency in the search. So one was performing better than the others. So we reallocated some of that budget from the campaigns that weren't working well to the ones that were working well, as well as increasing those. So it's not always a one size fits all. Even if you have the budget, you may still take the consideration to reinvest some of the other monies into an area where you're seeing better client acquisition costs or better opportunity. And then interestingly enough, using that case study, if I may, this in this particular situation, so the service would then be leveraged that as a gateway to engaging the client for that service. And then we would nurture the client to share the products that we have available, which are a longer sales cycle to the same clients for the future. So in the future, if they wanted those products, they would come back to that same client to purchase those products that they got the service for initially, knowing that the client that vendor has that product available. So again, really thinking the life cycle, the life journey of that potential client, and what could happen as they move forward in time with the client. So it can be fun. It can be interesting when you're looking at it from the right perspective.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I think this would be a good time for us to offer everyone on the webinar an exclusive offer from Marstudio and Chevy. So we offer this for people who attend our webinars. It's a free one-on-one business growth strategy session with Mars Studio's Senior Chief Marketing Officer, and that's Chevy, of course. So you would benefit from a complimentary business growth strategy session. You can schedule it using this QR code right here. You can schedule time to speak with Chevy, and you can go ahead, and on that call you can ask all your important marketing questions, give him more context and such, and he'll provide a pretty good blueprint for you to apply and such. So that's our exclusive offer. You can scan that QR code in order to schedule your time with him. All right, now let's get back into the questions. So earlier when we talked about A/B testing, one thing I thought of was you mentioned timeline and like it depends with the timeline. Would you also say that budget is another criteria? Because if someone has a smaller budget, their timeline for A/B testing may be shorter than someone with a larger budget that can spend hundreds of thousands a month. Would you say that's another factor to also consider?
Budget is 100 million% another factor to consider, and it affects things in a lot of different ways. However, whether the timeline is shorter or longer, if you have less budget, I want to challenge you on your perspective. I would say the timeline is longer with less budget. And the
Because you,
reason for that is if you have more budget, then you can run parallel campaigns and you can get the results of parallel campaigns in order to then assess those parallel campaigns against each other to see the results or metrics to then invest further in one campaign over the other. Let's say, for example, you want to do pay per click, but you're also considering doing some sort of other digital funnel. And you're going to initially invest 1 to 2 thousand the first month in each of these, and then whichever one performs better, you want to invest 10,000 the following month, your peak month into that particular campaign. Well, now my timeline is only a month to run those two campaigns and see what the results are. But let's say if I don't have as much budget and I only have $1 to $2,000 to spend, plus 5,000, and I can, I may not be able to run two parallel campaigns. So therefore, that's where I actually think when you have less budget, it becomes more important to have a subject matter expert because you don't have as many opportunities for failure, because your resources are finite. So if you're gonna launch that rocket, try to do the best you can, do it once, do it right, or don't bother doing it at all, or try to get it as far as you can, towards your goal. towards your mission objective. So having said that, then you talk to those subject matter experts, try to make a hypothetical, decision based on what? Based on, past performance, based on past experience, based on past campaigns, and seeing the success or failure of those campaigns, and working with someone who's done those type of campaigns before to know what they're doing. And then run that campaign. But see, Jeremy, when you then run that campaign, it's going to take you a month to run the campaign, and you're going to say, I like the results or I don't like the results. You either invest the 5,000 or you don't. And if you don't, then you're going to be like, man, I really didn't like that. Okay, well, let's try that other thing we were talking about. Now I'm going to run another 1 to 2,000 in the other campaign. And now I'm 2 months in. So you noticed how you didn't have as much money. So therefore the timeline expanded. So I guess there's different ways to look at it. I'm not saying the way you're looking at it isn't right. But I think it really, again, is what are we talking about? What are we trying to measure? What's the objective? And that's really the key. And you want a Jeremy on the team and a Chevy on the team. Why? Because they're both going to look at it from slightly different perspective and make sure you get a full picture when you go through that evaluation, when you're looking at that. And if you bring a Salmon into the picture and an Olga into the picture and a Karen into the picture, you see how they all have different backgrounds. And folks, for those of you that don't know who we're talking about a chief communications officer, a chief dev officer, our chief creative officer, our chief content officer, right? If you bring all these different subject matter experts onto a call and you say, what's the possibility here? They're gonna all gonna look at it from potentially different perspectives, and ultimately that's what you want. To look at it and see where if there's a nuance from all these things that have been done before, what can be done. And I think even the companies that have the resources, they're preferring to work with someone that can be more strategic, and they're like, hey, you know what? We don't want to do an A/B. We want to just jump right into it. What's your recommendation? So A/B, I think, is oftentimes good if you're self-diagnosing, or you're going about it on your own. But if you have somebody leading you, you don't need trail one and trail two. The Sherpa will get you to top the mountain. They're gonna know which way to go, and they're gonna be able to do it twice as efficiently as you. So just maybe use their guidance.
Perfect. We have a question here from Anonymous. Hi, Chevy. The title of this webinar says
I'm
increase.
sorry to interrupt you. I don't know why. I like the anonymous ones the best. I mean, regardless of what the question could be. The question could be, Chevy, do you have white bread or, wheat bread for breakfast? But as soon as it's from anonymous, it just sounds so much cooler. But go ahead, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
Anonymous. Hi, Chevy. The title of this webinar says increase your sales without increasing your ad budget. I'm very curious. Can you explain how that is done?
Oh, yeah, man. So now I know it's why it's anonymous. Shots fired. So I love it. We got like Martian lasers going right now, bro. It's like Star Wars up in here. Ouch. No, I really love the question from Anonymous. Whoever you are, you should actually pat yourself on the back and actually identify who you were. Um, yeah. So that's the key. 25-year anniversary. Marstudio's 25th year anniversary. I mentioned we've been an RFP proposal company for almost 2 decades of that period. That's a long time. That's a majority of our life, right? So only 20% of our life have we really shifted towards this needs based, or really helping our clients identify the need rather than the solution. And here's the idea. Oftentimes clients would misdiagnose. I need to do this, right? So the first thought, if we go back to that visual, and I'll pull it back up. I'll pull it back up here. I don't even need to go beyond this document right here. The old way, look at the top left. It says the old way: leads, conversions, profit. So when clients think sales, they think marketing. The first thing they're thinking, your boss comes to you, is like, we need more clients. We need more people knocking on the door, right? Like that's the first thought. And oftentimes, that's not the problem. The problem isn't the flow or the water. It's like, man, I got a river running outside. I got the WSSC out there, the fire hydrants, the fire trucks, but there's no line connecting to the house. There's no line connecting to the sink, and it doesn't get to where it needs to get to. So I could pump all the leads I want, but if the pipe looks rusted and no one wants to drink from it, no one's going to want to drink from it. If there's poor messaging and gunk in the pipe and none of the water's getting through, then it doesn't matter how much water I shove through. If there's cracks where the water's going into the foundation and leaking everywhere, and your SEO audit has 1,000,001 errors to it, right? If your landing pages don't clearly articulate your value proposition, if your visuals are horrible, if your load times are slow, a plethora of problems that we could discuss, then it doesn't matter how many leads you get. You're not going to get the results. So oftentimes, what the problem isn't that the client isn't spending enough money or advertising enough or generating enough leads. The problem is they're not able to convert those, or maybe even they're utilizing leveraging resources in the wrong places. I mean, it could be something as obvious as, oh, we hired the sales guy and we haven't, gotten any new leads. I'm like, what'd you hire the sales guy for? To, get us more leads. Well, what's his background? He's been, doing closing business deals for X company for the last 20 years. Well, he's a closer, not a lead generator. Like that's not his job. But you hired a closer to go out there and get more business, and that's not his job. He's not a lead gen mechanism, unless you hired him to go and knock on doors or set up trade shows. And even then, did you give him the tools? Does he do the trade show assets clearly articulate what the company does? Does he have a video to share with people at the trade show? Does he have a brochure that easily articulates the value proposition of your product or service? I haven't shared any visuals with anyone today other than a pipe and a faucet and a knob, right? And I have so much more that I would love to share, but I want to keep it simple for today's purposes, and keep it. But anyways, the idea is, how do we generate those additional opportunities? We go and make sure that the ecosystem that you've created isn't broken and there's no leakage. So look at it this way, Jeremy, or whoever anonymous was. Let's say I invest $1 to pump water into this pipe. And out of this pipe, because of all the cracks and stuff, I only get a quarter. Well, the option is, if I want to get to a dollar worth coming out of the pipe, I got to now stick $4 into the pipe to get $1 out. Well, that doesn't, the other theory is, don't even touch the handle. Don't worry about increasing the flow of the water coming through the pipe. But if I just simply go and clean out the gunk in the pipe, and if I simply patch up and weld the cracks in the pipe, and I polish the pipe, you're gonna just get better flow, and you didn't even turn up the faucet. And that's the idea. So oftentimes there's a lot of inefficiencies, there's a lot of deficiencies, there's a lot of gaps, there's a lot of lack of clarity in the messaging or the flow or the user experience, and ultimately, the way we're able to come in there and fix these problems is because we know that when people get thirsty, when they're like, I'm thirsty, I need water, I want more opportunities, they start going and looking for sales and marketing companies. Why? Because they want to do direct mail, or they want to do pay per click, or they want to do Google advertising, or they want to do display advertising, or they want to do radio advertising. They're hungry for that thirst and that opportunity. And we're like, you know what? Slow down. Maybe you have water already coming to your village. Maybe your aqueduct system is blocked, or maybe there's something broken, and it's not about the lead gen, but it's about, how do I get it there and then drink from it. Have you as a business attempted to tap a well at where you are without going and looking at anywhere else? What do you mean? Well, if you drill into the ground, you'll eventually hit water right where you're standing. Well, what do you mean? Well, do you have an Excel sheet that has a list of all your current clients or past opportunities on it? Yeah, we do. What are you doing with it? Nothing. Oh, well, can we go ahead and put that into an email list or CRM, or can we go ahead and start reaching out to these people individually and start re-engaging them because you already have this opportunity sitting here? Or you already getting, oh, by the way, let's look at your analytics. We already have, you know, 5,000 unique new visitors coming to your website, but are we capturing that information? Your website has no phone number on it. I gotta click 3 clicks before I get to a contact form. I got to click 3 clicks before I can subscribe or buy the product or service it is that you're selling me. But you're not nurturing these ecosystems to be more engaging. Yet you're looking for more opportunity. So again, it's hard sometimes to, and it is, and I've struggled myself. Identifying where the gaps are sometimes in these ecosystems, and they can be very finicky, and unless you've been doing this forever, it's kind of like, when you take your car, Jeremy, to the mechanic and you're like, oh, I hear this like noise coming from my front left fender. And like, I think it might be like my rotor, blah, blah, blah. And he goes and runs it around the block and he comes back and he's like, or he's not, he hasn't even left the parking lot yet, right? He's just listening. He goes, no, that's your fan belt.
Yeah.
But I'll,
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. And then 2 seconds later, he's like, yeah, it's your fan belt. Yeah, I get to change it. Like just from the sound or just from knowing, and that's the thing, that's the experience, and that's what it potentially gets you. It's hard. Man, if I told the truth, we should do like a behind the scenes of marketing and sales and things that get messed up and how many times we mess up. We're all human. It's like trying to say like teachers don't mess up or cooks don't mess up or they don't burn a steak. Of course we all mess up. Now imagine how many times we mess up and we're the professionals that have been doing this for 25 years versus you're going to go out there and do it on your own. I think at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is get advice. I think that was the one thing. If I could go back and do it all over again, if I could give anyone advice here, is I would get mentorship a lot sooner. I would have gotten direction a lot sooner. But we're all in school and hate our teachers.
Yeah, the mechanic analogy is on point, definitely. All right. Thanks for the question, Anonymous. We appreciate that. I think that
Oh
was a good.
yeah, and feel free to ask a follow-up question to that if I wasn't clear about the answer. Because yeah, there's a lot of truth to the statement. Increase your advertising, right, without increase your lead generation without increasing your advertising budget. It's something really important to think about, because it really goes to show that, hey, it's not just the fuel that you stick in the Formula One car, the NASCAR, the rocket. You put high quality fuel in the wrong rocket, it's going to explode. You put good Formula One fuel in a car that doesn't have the right driver, it's going to veer off the road. There's a lot of different pieces that have to come together in order to get to where you want to get to. And sometimes it's not just the fuel, it's not just the rocket fuel. Sometimes the fuel's enough. It's about where you're pushing that fuel and those opportunities.
Right. So we have about 13 minutes left in this webinar. Feel free to get.
If you haven't gotten your question in, this was your chance. I hope we've gotten to everyone's question. Don't be bashful, throw it out there. And also feel free, last hour, it's not too late. Raise your hand, jump on, ask your question live, and we can have a back and forth. I see people's names, but I'm not one of those guys that likes to say people's names out loud to like, shame them into wanting to come on board. If you want to come on board, you come on board. And if you don't, that's okay. But yeah, we'll run this right down to the wire. And again, before if we, I don't want to run out of time, and I don't know what's on Jeremy's schedule and whether he's going to do this or not, or whether we have this. I don't think we have the slide, but next month, I'm sure you'll get the email next month, 8 p.m. If you want to join us, try late night show. I'm also, Jeremy, I was thinking we should do like, I was going to talk to Sam, see if we could do like this fun like stamp logo on top of the town hall. It says late night
Late
instead
night.
of town hall. So it's gonna be the late night marketing show instead of the town hall marketing show. We're gonna stamp it on top of it so people still see that it's the original town hall Q&A, but with a little late night stamp. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's happening next month. And then 2 months from now, we got Sam coming, and he's gonna do like a 50-50. So he's doing like a presentations, a little bit more substance. I think some people might appreciate that actually a little bit more for those of you that enjoy that. I like the Q&A the whole time, and but Sam's gonna take a little page out of my book, and he's gonna try to reserve at least. I'm trying to convince him 50% of his time to take some questions related to the conversation that he was having and really as it relates to whatever he's covering. I think he's going to start at the top of the pyramid and do branding, but I could be wrong. I might actually be wrong, but I'll let him share that. Um,
So we,
but anyways, yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
so we have a question here. Hi Chevy, Noah here. Following up on the previous question, what are the best practices for better sales landing page conversion rates?
I'm not sure what question you're following up on, but I'll answer the question as I understood it. What are the best, practices for sales conversion landing pages? Like basically, what can you do with sales pages? So I like A/B testing, and I know you hate this answer, but I'll give you answers. I like A/B testing landing pages just like I like A/B testing anything else because you know what? I've heard it all. I've heard it all. Less is more is less. You got to have a compelling story. No, no, no. You need a click funnel. And I think we've tried it all. We've been part of it all. Again, it works and it doesn't work. You got to be patient. It's trial and error. You gotta have the right pieces. Um, like for example, we just recently created this very cool AI, like 2 minute, 3 minute introduction of what Marstudio does. Well, what people don't understand in watching that, they'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. AI made this video for you. This is just amazing. It's just amazing what AI can do. By the way, guys, I finished an AI course at MIT in AI and business strategy and integration. Now, having said that, again, we're back to this person. This is amazing. AI made this video for you, right? Like, no, it didn't. No, it took 20 years to create the content and the assets that were in that AI video. And it took a lot of people with a lot of subject matter expertise already in the field to leverage a tool to convey all these assets that have been developed over time. And that's why the AI video looks as cool as it does. But yeah, I probably went sideways on whatever that last question was.
Yeah,
But yeah, Jeremy, give it to me one more time. What was it? Oh,
yeah,
pages. So landing pages. I think again. Sorry, I get excited. So landing pages. Same thing, same rules. Look. I like it depends. If is the call to action book an appointment with me, then the landing page should be your calendar and the person should be able to book an appointment with you. Is the call to action learn more? Well, then the page should have a little bit more substance, and I should be able to learn more. And learn more should be the appropriate call to action on the page that led me to this page that now has a sales call to action. So like we have all these different types of pages. If the call to action is schedule or contact us to see if you can qualify for a one-on-one, then have the button go to a page with a contact form that gets the information that you need for that. So I think there's a lot of different things that work. I think there's all these conversations about what should be above the fold, what should be below the fold. You got to experiment. Like for example, even if you have a long scrolling informational brochure sales page like a funnel, maybe put the contact form right underneath the footer, right underneath the fold. So you got basically everything. You can see it, and as soon as you scroll, you have the contact form, and then as you scroll below that, you have the rest of the information. That's one tiny piece of a mechanism that you can change or introduce in order to potentially enhance the engagement. I'm a little old school. I believe that if someone wants to do business with you, they're going to do business with you. So that's where I come from. So I think if they want to reach you, they're going to reach you. But do I also believe in the psychology of user experience and having some of these things that enhance that process? Yes, I also believe in that too. So I think it goes both ways. But again, I think you have to get to a point where you're like, I believe what I'm selling. I know who my market is. I'm advertising to my market. I'm confident I'm reaching them. If they want to do business with me, they're going to engage me. And you get to that point by getting the results that you're looking for. And when you do get the results you're looking for, you build the confidence to know that you have a system that works. You don't wake up every morning going, "Oh my God, if I go to the bathroom right now and I turn on the shower, will the water come out?" You don't worry about that. You just assume it's going to turn on. And that's how marketing should be for your company. You should have systems in place that are consistent and they've been proven and measured where you know how that's working. And once they're established, you're comfortable and you're not coming back to it, unnecessarily. Sorry, Kevin. It's Kevin. Jeremy, I'm gonna shut my face because I know we have 5 minutes, and I don't know if there's more questions flowing in. I'll actually answer any additional questions rapid fire. We can go 1 minute answers or 2 minute answers if there's any
Yep.
questions out there.
Hopefully that answered your question. No, yeah, we have about 5 minutes left. So if you have questions, please go ahead and
You can
ask
do
them.
rapid fire, man. Throw them. Just throw them like darts.
Really quick, you mentioned testing. What would you say are some underrated like landing page elements? For example, in my experience, I found that FAQs are so underrated. Like it helps so much with learning more, like you mentioned, education. Someone doesn't know something, they go to your page. Yeah, it educates them, but they hit the FAQs and it's pretty straightforward. Are there any
In
other
infographics.
infographics? Okay.
Let me, let me throw a boring, old school one. Yeah, infographics. Like a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? But an infographic is a series of pictures that helps to visualize, who you are. Iconography, I think, is underrated. You see a lot of content. I think like a lot of times landing pages that are successful despite their content, maybe because they have a video, because if it's easier to digest. I personally like videos latter in the conversation, just if you're asking me. But I do think like because I get tired of like, oh, book your session with us. And as soon as you book it, the first thing is watch this 2 hour video. And I like that's like come on, man. Some aren't that bad. Some are like watch this 2 minute video to what so we know what you to expect. I personally think that could be a more sophisticated touch point if you were even gonna do it. I get why they do it where they do it because they're like they have your attention right now, right here, and they want you to watch that video right now, right here. Uh, okay, I personally enjoy, again, if is this client willing to engage me, they're willing to engage me. I like the idea of, shooting it out to them as a second touch in an email. But again, I'll pause in case there's additional questions. We got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If we have time and nobody's asking a question, I'll ask my own question or make my own statement, just to leave everybody with something to think about. At one point, I mentioned LinkedIn Boulevard and Facebook Avenue. I don't know if anybody caught that, but if you caught it, you know, uh, something that I took from my dad or, from traditional business a long time ago is that, they used to say location, 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 like where your business is, where your storefront is, where your retail business is. And, and then the demographic you can reach, the income, household income and so forth that you can reach and so forth and so on. I think that's still true. I do still think that location, location, location are just as important. And but the ecosystem's completely changed. It's gone from a physical realm to a virtual realm. You have a digital realm now that is you have a digital ecosystem. And I wish, man, if there was one thing I could go back and do all over again is connect that dot a lot sooner than it took me to connect because what I didn't recognize is and we could have been a lot further along as an entity as an organization, as a company, if I had recognized this one thing a lot sooner, which is making sure you have a storefront presence, a digital storefront, a website presence. You can have a website, but if it's in the middle of the Sahara Desert and no one knows how to get there, there's no signs, there's no exit ramps to get to it, then no one's gonna know how that you exist. So I think it's important to have a presence. It's exactly why we're doing what we're doing right now. I'm not saying you should do a webinar. I'm saying you should simply advertise on LinkedIn, right? Be present on LinkedIn Boulevard. That is the new street. That's the new Saks Fifth Avenue. That's the new downtown district, you know? So make sure you're on LinkedIn Boulevard. Make sure you're on Facebook Avenue. Make sure you're on that roll, that screel, those are the new modern day billboards, that we used to see on the highway and the streets. Because make sure you're running retargeted advertising so that someone who comes to your website and then is on Fox News or CNN or ESPN, they can see your ad pop up on their screen. You need 8 to 12 touches in order to have conversion rates. You got to be present, and you got to be present in those digital ecosystems in order to get the results you're looking for.
Very well said. I want to thank everyone for joining June's webinar. Once again, you guys can all access a free one-on-one business growth strategy session with Chevy. You can go ahead and scan this QR code in order to schedule a time with him. You can ask all your questions related to marketing for your business or your company. Also sales questions and and so that he can create some sort of plan for you moving forward. Because again, like you mentioned, help goes such a long way. We all have blind spots, so getting an expert on your side can really change things a lot. Um, so you can scan it using that QR code. This is great, amazing questions asked today, Chevy. Thank you for your answers to some of my questions too, especially the question around my cousin's aviation planning book. Um, Thank you everyone for joining. Next month, we're going to have another webinar, July 11th at 8 p.m. We're going to all send reminders to you guys to join that one. So stay tuned for our messaging. Take care. Have a great rest of the day. And everyone keep being well. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.